Ms. Chow, seconded by Monsieur Obey, moves that this House call on the government to commit in Budget 2013 to a long-term, predictable and accountable federal infrastructure plan in partnership with other levels of government, as recommended by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, in order to améliorer le faible.
A. Improve Canada's lagging productivity. B. Shorten commute times. And C. Fix Canada's crumbling infrastructure.
Debate. The Honourable Member for Trinity-Spadina.
Thank you, Monsieur President. Across the country, getting to work on time is becoming a luxury. Congestion and overcrowded public transit make it harder and harder to get to work on time. From coast to coast, frustrated commuters tell the same stories. In Toronto, angry office workers stand in the cold while jam-packed streetcars rush by and they feel like, even if they get on, sardines being packed in. In Vancouver suburbs, impatient mothers that need to drop off their kids at school wait forever for a bus to arrive. In Montreal, frustrated college students are late for their classes and jobs because of delays and breakdowns in the aging metro system. The average commute time in the Toronto area has reached 82 minutes per day. That's far worse than New York City and Los Angeles. And Vancouver and Montreal are not doing much better either. 82 minutes, Mr. Speaker. That's more than most parents get to spend with their kids playing and reading. 82 minutes. That means a missed dinner with a partner for hardworking couples. 82 minutes, that means less time to study and to prepare for a class for college students. Traffic gridlock is costing our economy $10 billion a year. $6 billion in the Greater Toronto area alone. Now, $10 billion is more than the GDP of all three territories and PEI combined. It is in fact bigger than the budget for 6 provinces. That's huge. That's the $10 billion that we lose every year because of gridlock and traffic jams. For companies, that means less productivity, less competitiveness against their American counterparts, and ultimately less jobs. 26,000 less jobs in the GTA alone. For parents, that means less time seeing their kids grow up. For all levels of government, it means less tax revenues. So gridlock is a problem we can no longer afford. Canada's infrastructure problems go beyond the lack of proper transit and rising commute times. 1 out of 5 roads is in poor or very poor conditions. That means potholes and car-sized sinkholes in Ottawa. It means damaged car suspensions. It also means that overpasses and bridges in Montreal and Toronto are becoming unsafe. So watch the Garner. It has been raining concrete 6 or 7 times this year alone on the traffic and the pedestrians alone below. 200 communities are also struggling with bad water. Water that looks cloudy or that tastes and smells funny. And in half of these communities, you can't even drink the water without boiling them or you'll get sick. How sad is this, given that clean water is a human right in a country where the world's largest fresh water supply. That's what we have, the world's largest fresh water supply. We have unsafe water systems. Roads and bridges are a problem we can no longer afford. Now, those are not isolated cases. Communities from coast to coast are struggling with lack of transit, pothole roads, and unsafe drinking water. They are calling for federal help. They want a long-term federal plan for infrastructure. And they are not alone. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities, representing over 2,000 municipal leaders, calling for a long-term infrastructure plan to be included in the 2013 federal budget. And so is the Canada West Foundation, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, the Canadian Urban Transit Association, Engineer Canada, Construction Association, from coast to coast to coast. Business groups, union groups, organizations, municipal leaders, they're all calling for the same thing, which is a long-term, predictable, and accountable infrastructure plan. So why is it that the Minister of Transport doesn't want to listen to mayors and city councillors? Why are commuters and working families ignored by the Conservatives? Why doesn't the minister want to ride the Toronto subway with me at rush hour so that he can experience the crowded trains, so he can experience the commuters left behind on the platform, so he can experience the frustration, the anger over lost time? Curious that even before today's debate, the minister last night said that he will vote against my motion. Before he even listened to the motion. A no without debate, a no without listening to Canadians, a no without listening to parliamentarians. Frankly, that's a bit of a contempt for this House of Commons, Mr. Speaker. But maybe I can guess what is the reason. Perhaps because Conservatives prefer the on and off funding that frustrates cities that needs predictable funding. Perhaps because they want a photo op every few days rather than a 20-year plan so cities can plan long-term. Maybe because they want to hand out these gigantic big checks to the insider friends, they want to reward them. Or maybe because that they are afraid that if we have fair distribution, using objective criteria for funding and measuring successes, then they can't make decisions based on partisan consideration. That could be the reason. Build Canada Fund has been too unpredictable and too beholden to partisan interests to really help municipalities. And we do know that municipalities now have a deficit, an infrastructure deficit amounts to $171 billion. That is a huge amount of money on the shoulder of property tax payers. Someone has to pay. The question is whom? Well, it's the people that are going to be paying, it's those that pay property tax, those with fixed income, seniors, those that really can't afford much more. They are the ones that will shoulder this huge deficit of $171 billion. So that's why municipalities are saying that they want an accountable and predictable long-term funding plan. They are tired of a grant system that feels like a lottery. They want a merit base. They want a predictable transfer. So all the federal government has to do is to listen to cities and communities across Canada. For years, they've been calling for the same thing. They want a federal plan with secure support for at least 20 years, not a 2-year funding cycle. That's how long it takes to develop and maintain and build a long-term infrastructure program, whether they are transit or roads or drinking water. Our cities need funding that is predictable and allocated in a nonpartisan way, like the existing gas tax on a per capita basis. Our cities need a plan where funding grows with non-political measures such as economic, population, and ridership growth forecast. Our cities need a plan that has a clear criteria and set clear targets like cutting specific commute times, because we know that what gets measured gets managed, gets results, and it gets built. Our cities need a plan based on partnership among jurisdictions so funding can lever provincial, municipal levels of government and the private sector. Our cities and companies need a plan that encourages innovation, efficiency, and sustainability so we can make our transport system greener and unleash Canada's creative potential. So we hope that members of Parliament across the way would be able to stand up for a better quality of life and a stronger economy and support a long-term federal infrastructure plan so that we can get Canada moving again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.